Bonjour, welcome, bienvenue, bienvenidos. I am Beatriz Navas, General Director of the Spanish Film Institute. Je suis Beatriz Navas, directora générale de l'Institut de la cinématographie de l'Espagne. Thank you for coming. Merci pour attendre le premier événement que la délégation espagnole a préparé pour parler des moments de notre cinéma, de cinéma espagnol. C'est un honneur d'être le pays d'honneur à le Marché du Film de Cannes. It's be the country of honor in the Marché du Film de Cannes. It's the most important event in cinema for professionals. And I'm going to introduce you one of the most important producers in Spain, from a new generation, but also we have a producer with a long career that is Esther Garcia. Is also the National Cinematographic Award of 2018, an award that we give in honor of her career. And well, I'm speaking English and French, but the conversation will be in Spanish. So thank you for coming. We hope you enjoy all the Spanish activities, the Spanish cinema present also in the festival and the Quincène and La Semaine de la Critique. We want you to know that the Spanish cinema is now in a great moment, and it's because a collective work from different institutions, public institutions, public and private institutions, also the film schools, the industry events in the festivals. There in the last 20 years, we have been working hard, and now we are seeing the result that we can reach the global field, the global market, and nothing more. Thank you again, and I will give the room to Javier Zurro. He's a very important journalist in Spain that he will introduce the conversation. Thank you very much.
Please.
¿Así?
¿Dónde vamos?
Pues a casa.
Pero es que están en mi casa.
Eta bere aurpegitik igurtzen hasi zen.
¿Esto qué dios? ¿De Marina, esclavo?
No puedo decir nada a vuestra madre.
¿Qué ha pasado entre papá y tú? ¿Mi mamá?
¡Tú no te muevas!
¡Hay cerveza! ¿Se está riendo de mí?
¡Qué asco de tía! Mírala.
Hello, everybody, and welcome, and thank you very much for being here today. My name is Javier Zurro, and for me, it's an absolute honor to be here in Cannes for the film festival and to introduce the different producers. We're actually opening, this is the first event, the first conference, so the title of the conference is The Moment of Our Cinema. I think this is a perfect title because I think it's 2 years that this is the great year, the great moment of Spanish cinema. So we've had all sorts of troubles, but now finally all the different planets are in line, so to speak. And so we have the different producers with different generations. So what has actually happened? What have we done well? What we still have to do? And so I'm going to introduce you. I'm going to start with Esther Garcia, because it's, she's been there for more than 30 years in El Deseo. And so she has cooperated with Guillermo del Toro, Isabel Coixet, so all sorts of very interesting people. And I think that a national award in cinematography as a producer, I think it is absolutely a great achievement. And so, and then Extraña Forma de Vida with Javier and Luis Ferrón from La Zona Producciones. He's been producing for more than 20 years author films and also films in Basque, and also non-fiction films that have marked the last years of Spanish cinematography. And so why is he producing these films on the corridas? And we have Sandra Tapia, Arcadia Motion Pictures, and she has produced Snow White and, of course, Asubestas, and phenomenal things that are starting their trajectory here in Cannes. So the idea is to talk about the relevance of this market, and then, of course, you know, you've just bought Meon, and of course, you're going to distribute your new products all over the world. No, not all over the world, just in the United States. And anyway, I think, and Robot Dreams. And then Omilia Forte from Avalon. So, of course, you work inside this market through the front door, because you have produced amazing films, historical films, and also other films that have been shown in Berlin, for example. And also the second film by Elena Martin, and other very interesting projects. And of course, Paula Botran from Sideral. So they're starting very strongly. So this is production and distribution by Media Studios, and they are doing extremely interesting things. And you have here in this market today very promising projects like Javier Rabollo, Goyantes, and of course I'm going to ask you a little about this. So the idea is that we have a dialogue. And of course my first question is it really the great moment of Spanish cinema? And how have we reached this point? I don't know who would like to answer first. Well, I think it is a very an incredible moment of Spanish cinema and cinematography, looking at the quantity of films and their quality, and they're present in all sorts of festivals, and also in the cinema halls, of course. So 12 or 13 years ago, we were starting producing, so it was basically avant-garde kind of films. And then we've had Pedro Almodóvar, we've had different authors who wanted to connect with an international public, and they actually wanted to make their films travel. So what I think that this has to do with all sorts of efforts that have been coordinated and the structure that has been created, which I think makes me look at the future in a very confident manner. And of course, this number of films is absolutely amazing. And of course, this has never happened before in Spanish filmography, and extremely good films. So, and also the number is impressive. And I wanted to ask you, how do you value this moment? Do you really think that there has been a culture change, something that has flowered? Well, I'm actually convinced that it is exactly like this. What Luis has just said is perfectly okay. But apart from all this, we've had institutions that have cooperated, and they decided to help, for example, female films, because 50% of the population is women, and now they're finally present. So we have everything we had in the past, plus this 50%. And I think this was the key. And also beyond the great ideas by the great authors and the great scripts. And I don't know if I should say this, but Spanish filmmaking has traveled enormously thanks to Pedro Almodóvar. So there is great expectation in finding more authors of that kind, of that profile. I have no doubt. So this is an extraordinary moment for Spanish filmmaking. And I believe that the producers, the female producers, are making a huge and additional effort in order to show that what we can actually do. I totally agree with everything that Luis and Esther has actually said. So there's several reasons in order to reach this kind of situation. I believe that in the end there's so many more women directing, and we've always had women directors, but I believe that now we have an ecosystem where we have new tales and with perspectives that are completely new. So if you just look at the different cases of internationally famous films, we've had many, and most of them are directed by women. And so 20,000 Species of Bees, for example, we have several examples. But I think it is important that the films we produce are Spanish films. We just want to talk about our realities, our languages. We have them in Catalan, in Gallego, in Basque, so different languages. So we realize that when we talk about our things, and then we finally manage to make all of this travel in the world. So there is also a moment that the local stuff actually is working elsewhere. So we like to tell our stories, and we have this ambition of making our things, our local things, travel all over the world. Something that I want to talk about is that we are training much more. So everybody is getting a proper training, not just producers, but everybody along the pipeline and along the chain. And now, for example, I'm teaching people to what all producing is about. So I think that we have this extremely important role at a national level, and this goes through a pipeline, and also obviously the stories, which have to be important. Yes, I would like to add something to this. I think that finally the great public and the industry itself knows that we do something more apart from looking for money. So we're looking for ideas. And so we are the promoters, we are the creative people in the industry. We're not just looking or asking for money. Yes, I exactly agree with Esther. So I was doing marketing and international sales. So what I'm noticing now that we've had a change in perception for our cinema. And so we had our slots in the past, but the stories we're telling now are universal stories, and they travel with great ease. So we are seeing a great impulse to this promotion, and we have different budgets, we have an improvement in the incentives, we have different programs. And of course, I think that our cinema is finally getting to be well known. So when we open up to the international market, it's easier to talk about our projects nowadays. So two things I believe that are interesting. One is training, and because Before, the idea was to go to certain types of specific schools, but now we have laboratories, we have help in development, we have incubators. So how important is training, and is there still something missing? Well, sorry if I'm just taking the world. Well, and of course, after a very lovely 12-year history where I used to work before, I think that the quality of our cinema is based on what we have been doing since 30 years. In other words, we have all the different schools in Barcelona, in Otto Fabra, in all sorts of schools and training environments, because at the very beginning we were not really connected with the schools. And so it was not really structured, this teaching of and also passing the knowledge. Now we have collective knowledge and also collective forms of training. We have schools that have been founded in 2013, 2014. So it has to do, for example, with the different incubators and all sorts of places where you're actually conveying knowledge and where producers can actually meet experimented producers, and building a whole sort of alliance network, like Paola was actually saying, with everything that is being done abroad. Like, for example, in the Cannes Film Festival, in Spain, it's not just Madrid and Barcelona, but basically all the Spanish territory. We have these places where people can actually meet and promote their activities, and also a producer is not someone as like a Buñuel who comes from heaven down to earth, and but it is a completely different process. And now we see that there is a desire to work with the old producers and the old directors and the new ones. So we have all sorts of ideas. So now we have this desire for the former producers to teach the new ones, and with the institutions that have been working transversally. And this has been extremely remunerative, extremely positive. And we've also have all the autonomic development incubators. And so people are not alone anymore. They have the right tools in order to understand how you can actually come up with a film and what it actually takes in order to produce a film. But anyway, I don't think I should dwell on this too much, and I'd better stop now. I agree with training, and of course the opportunity to being trained as a producer, and of course this generation and the previous generation, of course, like it happens at home, I work with former producers. They have a knowledge of the past, so it is an intergenerational form of life. So we live together. We're not just picking up from one another, but we're basically all living together. I totally agree with you. I think that this intergenerational interchange works two ways. We have people producers who have a very solid background, and this is very healthy and necessary in order to help the new people, the new producers. And several times we have emerging talents, and we need to capture these talents because they're all part of the same generation. So we have Criaturas, which is a case, a very successful case, I would say, and Julia Est, for example, once again in Fabra. So we have Astor with Ariana, and they do something similar, and then they write Clara Roquette. And so we are basically the same generation of people. And once again, so we have all sorts of people, and of course, so it is a network of cooperation between people, and all the generations are working together, and I think this is basically the recipe for success. So now we're talking of many successful years. We've been to festivals, we've earned awards and prizes. So what are we going to do in the future? If we leave aside Pedro Almodovar and what he's done. So maybe we need a change, or don't we need a change? Well, I think that there is a change in paradigm, because since ICA, the policies have changed. So they are helping emerging producers. They need the experience of experimental producers, and they need to co-produce in order to have access to money and to take the decisions in order to get the funds. So we have the method in order to push forward all this mechanism so that we can produce films in different languages, for example, in different parts of the country. And so in order to take this kind of decision and to get the results that we have achieved, we need, for example, women in responsibility places. We need women writing scripts and women producers. So in the ICA, we have the former committee, so we have the cinema schools, this transmission of knowledge, cooperation with foreign producers, etc., and so forth. So whether it's a small circumstance or a greater, more important circumstance, all of this has contributed in reaching the goals we have reached. So I don't think that the moment is over. On the contrary, I think we are deep in the moment. I agree with you 100%. So it is extremely important to have access to festivals and to have success in the festivals. So we have to understand which are the films that have earned money. For example, Gloria has earned a lot of money, internationally speaking. So, and there are other films that have worked extremely well in France or in the UK. So what we actually need going through a festival is not just the end of the thing. On the other hand, it is just like a trampoline to throw us into the rest of the world. So we need to understand what works in Spain and what works abroad. And I think it is extremely important to understand this. So, of course, we are here in the film market. I have the sensation that so we need to have an idea of what is happening outside Spain, because sometimes it looks like we're only producing for Latin America, we only have the Pedro Almodovar kind of view, but I believe that we need producers to have an idea of what they want to do. We have to co-produce, we have to find partners. So how important are these markets, or these film markets, or like Cannes, for example? Well, I think there has been a crucial point. Productions are exceedingly more expensive, so to get financing in your country is a very limited exercise. So you need to look for partners that allow us not just to have the financing of the project and not to come up with a project and to just make do with the money you have, but the idea is to find partners and to get all the money you really need in order to come up with a very good product. So bearing in mind this perspective, you need to understand that you have to continue. And there were very, very few sales agents in Spain, so we had to look for others. And they have made us tap into the global market. And so now this has allowed us for the Spanish sales agent, they have grown, and we are using far more options. And it seems to me that taking a decision that films need precise amounts of money is absolutely fundamental. So we have to look for this kind of funds. How important it is to have projects that are being formed, that are being created, and looking for partners. So what is your experience abroad with what you have? Well, this is absolutely fundamental. For example, in this case, we have the film by Pedro Collantes. This is a co-production with France, and we are looking for direct partners. Of course, I come from sales, so I've always had it very clear in my mind that you have to understand how you're going to take this project to other territories. And so this is how you start positioning your project from the very beginning, from the very development of the project. So once again, you talk with people, the people who are here and who will come up with these films in the end. So you need to have a synergy, you need to have contacts, and maybe you're not financing this project, but you're going to finance another project that you have in your own pipeline. So the idea is to get out into the international market. So this is fundamental. Participating to the Festival of Cannes, for example, is fundamental. Well, if you want to develop new projects, and the first directors, men or women, needed to have this presence here in the international films, because you need to have people participating to different fora and to understand and to have an interchange with other producers so that you can actually make your project visible, because all of these markets, like Contra Market in Berlin and several others, well, they are very prestigious places. So even if you have won an award, for example, this is fantastic because it allows you to be visible and maybe to get the right kind of funds that you need for that project or for another project. So access to financing. And so there is a whole system that is actually feeding our productions. This is fundamental to develop your creativity, your capacity of being on the market and of being visible. So all these structures that have been created, these are models that are now complete, obviously. So now it seems that you need to be more creative. For example, the producer accompanying the director, and then the public and the private. Then you have a distribution, exhibition, etc. So there is a model where everybody is involved and everybody has been strengthened. I don't know whether this has been the key to success, this value chain, so to speak. Is there something missing? Do we need to complete something more? You'll talk about what is still missing. I think we have to strengthen this value chain. So after the pandemic, we have these two great challenges. So distribution and selection, and also financing, visibility of the projects, the ability of producing many, many films. I think there we're doing perfectly all right. So we also have to maintain the interest of the public vis-a-vis our products. And I think we have to pay attention to the future. Okay, well, the thing that I like most is helping development, because the effort you make in order to promote a project is amazing, and there's many projects that will never see the light because you cannot invest in all the projects. So once again, I think it is there where we have to work more. And considering what Sandra has just said, I think that the challenge is to recover and the number of spectators, because of course young people, they have a very different way of consuming, So we have to find what fascinates the young public, which kind of topics would bring them back to the cinema. So, and of course, we cannot lose sight of the fact that our work, our products have to travel. So it is not just the cinema halls or where you're actually looking at a film or a movie. So, of course, we don't want to lose the cinema halls. And yesterday, in the presentation of Extraña Forma de Vida, I don't know whether you were there, but what really moved us was that the people were in the hall were extremely young, and they were passionate about Pedro's work and with this format, 30 minutes. It's a short film. I don't know whether we are discovering something new or considering that people and we do consume very short products, maybe we could come up with shorter films. So there is something that we have to do in order to recover all these spectators. I think that along this line, something we are missing is going beyond our sector is I think is educating in schools, in all sorts of institutions, because we are overexposed, but we need to educate people into, especially the young people and also the adults, into trying to have the desire to look at our products. So we need to develop this kind of desire to consume. So you have to use the cinema in order to use it as a tool, in order to open your mind. So I think we have to work there. Maybe it is not in our hands to do this, it is in someone else's hands, but I think this should be strengthened. I remember, for example, the experience that we had a long time ago in France, for example. Maybe you can remember in different institutes, and so that was a long, so to speak, to reach a huge public, teaching in schools all about cinema and cinematography. I think this was an excellent exercise that was done. I believe that we need to create different directions, different paths, and especially the link with these new publics. And once again, we need to get this connection working. And, for example, in educational centers, to train people in knowing about cinematography, the history of cinematography, and also the cinematographical and audiovisual language. Because if you don't understand this language, you're not going to appreciate and you're not going to enjoy the product. So I think we really have to work on conveying knowledge, experience, and making this language understandable to teenagers, for example, because of course, they have a mobile phone and they can actually look at everything on a mobile phone. But the idea is to bring them back to the cinema hall and not just to using the cell phone as their mobile cinema. So I think that we have to work also with families and this getting close to what a film is all about. So not just asking people to go to the cinema and buying themselves a ticket, but rather to make everybody understand how important it is, the industry, the possibility of telling stories, etc. Well, I agree with this line. I think it is also important to find a balance between platforms and halls, because we need to protect cinema halls and it is part of education. So it is very easy for the new generations to use and consume content in another manner. So you are at home, you look at the platform, and you look at what is on the platform. So we need to strike a balance. And the idea is to take measures so that we can have this kind of balance. So this is a way to reach this extremely young public that does not really want to go to the cinema hall. Well, going back to this topic, so there is no mathematical formula in order to have this success. But if I have something extremely creative, extremely interesting, then obviously people will be attracted to all sorts of platforms and halls. Well, I think it's the first time I come as a spectator. I need to understand the new trends. I need to have financing. But if my first worker doesn't walk the road, so to speak, maybe my second project will. So, of course, I have to keep on going. I have to keep on coming up with something creative. And, of course, we can do this. And once again, the idea is to try to look at people who've had success, and we have to understand that production time is long and slow. And when it comes out to the public, success can be instantaneous. So it's a completely different timing. Well, I think there are producers that have a publishing line which is extremely clear. We are totally eclectic. We can write about anything. So the only requirement is that we have to like it. We have to really like the script, so we have to share the rest of our lives with that project and not the other way around. And of course, obviously, it has to be commercial. This is always in the back of our minds. So the project needs to have a response by the public. It can be wonderful. It can be helpful for future projects, because what we want to do is to do one and then another one and another one and another one. So, like you were saying, there is no magic formula. There is no magic wand. It's a lot of hard work, so it is absolutely fantastic. There are no formulae for success, because this is fantastic, because if you've been successful, then why not us? We can also be successful. So I totally agree that this is the challenge ahead of us. So we need to have to find a balance between the film that you like, that you want to produce, and that people will like it. So sometimes I love a movie, I love this film, but is it going to be a success? So we have to understand what works and not work. So once again, we have a help from the public sector. So at this point, let's just look at the future. So there's always some kind of fear of, because we had economic crisis, this is the moment of elections, for example, or is there some kind of fear that public funds will not be available anymore, or maybe will be reduced? So, of course, this has worked, and we can tell public funders that they have to keep on funding us. Well, I think we have been successful in the past, and what we want to do as producers, we need something stable for the future, a calendar that will help all of us. So the industrial movies that you want to connect with a huge or greater public or a public abroad, and also films which are personal films or works by people who are starting with their career. So of course there is some kind of fear, not that there won't be any help anymore, or it's going to go up, it's going to go down, because with the collective effort, with the platforms, the television, the institutes of film institutes, etc., we can get funds. The idea is to have a legal framework that is stable for us in time, because we need time to produce a film, for example, and we cannot hesitate. We cannot have we cannot have instability because things will change halfway through. It takes 3 to 4 to 5 years to produce a film. So you have a family, you want to keep your lifestyle going. You don't want to lose everything you have invested in a film because the legal framework changes. So this has to be a business that has to have a legal framework. We need to be communicative with the rest of the world. We can do productions within Spain, and this helps also international productions to come to Spain, and they can benefit, and I repeat, they can benefit from the technicians, the different companies, the film commissions existing in Spain. So this is a canvas that deals with all sorts of kinds of cinema, or television, cinema, shorts, full motion pictures, etc. So we need to have international productions come to Spain and benefit from all the services that are available on the Spanish territory. And I would like to say another thing. So if international productions come, who is going to help them? Who is going to rent them cameras, or rent them, or do they have to buy? Where are they going to buy these tools they need? So I think it is absolutely necessary that any kind of policy has to be an improvement on what has already been done and been created. We cannot have a peak and then a trough. We need stability. So I believe that in the last years, talking about the moment of Spanish cinema, we have reached a certain maturity. So we have projects, we have all sorts of things that are coming up and are being successful. So we are in this situation, and of course I also insist on budgets, because we need the calendar, we need the legal framework, but we need to have a budget. We cannot have a swinging budget, we need a stable budget. I think that politicians are conscious of the fact that the external image of a country deals with culture. So what is traveling most is audiovisuals, and to have powerful audiovisuals depends on what we have achieved so far. We have to keep it going, and we have to enlarge it and to make it better. And so this is the culture of a country that will travel the world over. We cannot say it in a better way. So nothing else to add. Now, if you had to write to Santa Claus a little letter asking for a present, so what would you ask for? Well, going back to what we were saying before, I think that we have several women writing, producing, directing, and so if I'm writing to Santa Claus for a present, I want these women to not just do one film, but to keep on working and to have the possibility of doing a second movie and a third movie with a bigger budget, maybe. So, and this is a challenge we still have, because so there is like a ceiling there. We can do one film and that's the end of the game. So let's just try to do more. Yes, I think that what we're actually saying is correct. The industry is solid, of quality, and of course we need to create jobs, an economy all around the film industry. So we have to keep on building on this. We can look at foreign models, we can look at what they have done, and of course I think we can grab and grasp great ideas. For example, yearly calls. Last year we had the yearly call for selection, and that was the first time we had it. So in order to have maybe not just one yearly call, but to have several during the year. So, and to take all these ideas and all these other models that work somewhere else and to use them in Spain. I don't know whether there is any question from the public. Anyway, if you have a question to ask, please talk into the mic and you will be translated. Hello, good day to all of you, and extremely interesting what you have said. So, thanks to the legislation of equality, women have finally entered Spanish filmmaking. This is the year of election, so I'm asking myself, can this go back to the past? Do you have some kind of fear? Or is it not just a political problem, but as producers, how do you see this establishment? In other words, you have opera prima by women, and will you be able to go on with a second work, with a second? So how do you see the future for female producers and directors? Well, I think and I believe that it would be such a huge loss to use this kind of situation. I don't think it's just a political issue. We would have people take to the roads to protest against things. I think that this change will not happen. We're not going to go back to a male industry. Of course, we have several women who have achieved their opera prima, so we have to help them into continuing, and so they need to do a second film, a third film, with the necessary budget in order to compete with equal conditions. And I think that it is a possible challenge that we can try to win, of course. It is a consolidation moment through festivals and through the international projection of films. And when you are creating an ecosystem that works, to break it up would be jeopardizing the entire sector. So when you are discussing Spanish film with friends, etc., I always have to say that we are the same who do series, we are the same who do service to international productions or multimillionaire productions who come to turn their films here. So this is all part of the same ecosystem. So the young producer who does a short and it is her opera prima, and then maybe she will get 10 or 15 million for something on a platform that will travel all over the world. So I think that sometimes we start on a platform because this is where we connect with an international public. So we start doing with a short film, then they do a longer film, then they do a series that will travel all over the world, then they do another huge, amazing production of a film that will be a huge success in the rest of the world. So with critics applauding, etc. So all this is part of the same ecosystem. So if they decide to break this up, and they would not be responsible, they would be irresponsible. So once again, if they come up with a law, they come up with a kind of ideas, they need to have a mentality that understands that jeopardizing the work that has been so difficult to create, it would be a huge shame. And I think people would take to the roads to protest because we need to stabilize the sector. So, of course, we would recriminate, obviously. I don't know whether there's another question from the public. Thank you very much. Good day to all of you. Komuska. I am from Poland, actor, director, and producer. In the last years, we've seen a trend to include the characters. So there's several foreign characters in films, different races, different sexual orientation, etc. So I'm very, very happy. Do you think that this trend is going to continue? We hope, obviously, yes. What can we actually do in order to continue with this line of thought? And on the other hand, I would like to know, in Spain, which are the best meeting points for young filmmakers like me, and so where we can actually create some kind of synergy and to start with new projects. Thank you very much. Cultural diversity is intrinsic to our society. We see it in the type of films that we produce and we make. It is also a question of what is actually happening in the world, and this is the reason why our films are traveling. Like Esther was saying before, what we need financing, not just from Spain, but from other countries, international co-productions. This is a way to include these characters from other nationalities, cultures, etc. And this is where it comes from, this presence. And so it's not just the characters that you're representing on the screen, but basically the directors, we have foreign directors. So if you have a good project, a good idea, you can come up with a nice film. And so they have to present themselves. And I think, and I just want to add something, talking about gender. So, and we should not idealize that we can only talk about certain cultural level or cultural stratum. So I come from a family of very simple working class parents, and I'm producing films. So I'm trying to be inclusive, but we can include all sorts of creative profiles, but we have to understand what works and what doesn't. So what about where you can create synergies? There are several places, for example, the Ventana del Cinema de Leño and Festival del Cine de San Sebastián, and Gijón, Sevilla. So once again, we have different projects. So I think we have a variety of festivals in all the Spanish territory, and this is the industry of kind of profile. So several are places which are extremely open. So if I had to select one, in Cine Lanza, I've already mentioned it 3 times, and this is this fantastic meeting place where all these synergies come together. So you have to lose your shame and not be ashamed, because we have all been beginners, and so sometimes we feel ridiculous, sometimes the words don't come easy. But we have to try, we have to keep on trying. So all the best to you, the best of luck. And there's also an association of cinema producing women, so Asociación de Mujeres Cineastas. So talking about the festivals that you've mentioned, is there one that has a specific section of specific synergy between women? Something that comes to your mind? In the Malaga Festival, there is a section called Malaga Woman. So you can go and talk about your projects. So it's called Ma Woman, and there's 4 projects directed by women, and you can try there. And also in Catalonia, there are different programs to help you, accompany you, for example, for short films, etc. And you can also look at the list of all the incubators, laboratories, etc. So apart from all the panorama that we had before, we have a whole set of concrete initiatives, and some are very, very interesting. Some already existed, and now they have a little more money, so they can help beginners, especially women. And there you can feel represented. And so, unfortunately, we have to cut a long story short. So, of course, there is somebody who has to... So, okay, well, there is someone who has to close the session.
Well, it's a great honor for me to close this session. Javier, you did magnificent. You were perfect. And such a panel with so many experts, so many women, and also Luis. Congratulations for being here with us. And, well, my name is Maria Peña. I'm CEO of ICEX. ICEX is the institution in charge of internationalization of the economy. And we've been more than 35 years committed with this sector, so I think this is going to last forever. After 35 years, we are going to stay a company and connecting and giving the sector, giving the industry visibility. And as we said, it's an honor, but it's also a responsibility for me to close this session because I have to convince you to accompany us in the amazing journey we have prepared for this Marché du Film. As I said, because this is the milestone for our sector, I think we have a solid industry with a broad experience within the country, beyond the borders. We have a bright future with new generations also acquiring more and more international recognition. And of course, we want to share all of this with you. So hand in hand with ICA, we've been preparing a lot of activities with more than 30 projects that will be presented, showcased and in different panels, conferences and sections. I have my paper not to forget any of them. And first of all, I want to give you your reference and meeting point for this marché, which is going to be the Spanish Pavilion, where you can find over 50 companies keen to do business. As you said all the time, we are here, of course, to talk about culture, but we are here also to do business, and this is exactly what we want to do. And this is exactly why I want you to have the Spanish Pavilion as your meeting point and your reference point in this marché. And now I'm taking my paper because I don't want to forget any of the sections will be presented. First of all, of course, we have the Producers Network, which some of you will be presented also in this Producers Network. And I'm sure you will be excited to hear more about the projects and to know better, not only for them, but also for the other producers that will be presenting the projects in the Spanish Spotlight. We have, for the first time ever, we are going to be present also in Cannes Docs, so with the Spanish screenings in Cannes Docs, and Spanish screenings also goes to Cannes in this section, which is projects which are in development. New generations will be presenting also new projects in the short film corner, and of course we have our animation day. And the Animation Day, we have different projects also in the section Revelations, new Spanish animation short films, and more projects coming soon. And we'll have the opportunity to interact, to dialogue with Rodrigo Blas, which is going to present the project Sith and the framework of Star Wars. We believe in diversity, in inclusiveness and sustainability, and that's why you'll have also the opportunity to know more about our more inclusive projects in the section Impact, And Cannes Next will be the space for ICA to present a new platform, meet the new Spanish B2B and B2C platform. Did I say it properly? Meet the Spanish. And I want also I don't want to forget all the instruments and tools we have also under the brand Shooting in Spain for all those who are here present and want to choose Spain as the place to expand internationally for shooting or also for investing in Spain. And that's why we have created this Spanish Audiovisual Hub Bureau, and we can provide services to all companies, foreign companies, but also Spanish companies in the international path. So before concluding, I want to thank the Spanish sector. I think when you have a job as I have, as we have, to reinforce your visibility, the international visibility of our sectors, in this case, the cinema sector, the audiovisual sector in general, or the cinema specifically in this market, is so easy to work with so many talent, with so much talent, with so much excellence, and so companies that are really now, as you said, we have a past, we have a present, we have a future, and you are receiving the international recognition you deserve. So thank you very much for making our job so easy. And I want also to thank all the fantastic people in Marché. Also, I don't know if there's somebody here responsible for the Marché, but it's been great to work with them. And I think they also deserve our recognition. So thank you very much for all the Marché, for making things happen and making difficult things easy. And well, as Beatriz starting said, this is also there's commitment, I think, of all of us, of all actors of the government itself, with the plan, with the audiovisual Spanish hub for Europe, with investment, with incentives, with new regulations, and I'm absolutely convinced this is going to last forever. I mean, I don't know so much money as we have now, but anyway, the commitment is going to last. The commitment has always been there, and it's going to last. So thank you very much. I hope, more than I think, I hope I've convinced you to accompany us in this journey in the Marché du Film. And what I'm absolutely sure that you will not be disappointed. Thank you very much, and thank you.